They tried to say that Sid got the way that Sid got his ass kicked last pay-per-view translated to him not quitting tonight. Like, did you just see how he kept getting up? Goldberg was more than happy to just kick his ass, but
they had to call it off because he was getting beat. So if he didn't win this match, he was gonna die. That's why Tony Marinero was out there, because he's there to collect the debt. But Disco didn't win, and Marinero said he was gonna call, I don't know, the big mafia guy, and he kept saying, "Forget about it."
The medical people, they were tending to her, and then they just, I guess, left. So she was on the floor while Eddie basically had a handicap match. He went to go tag her, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. You're hurt. I'm hurt too, but whatever."
I'm getting my ass beat.
So yeah, the bell rings again. They just fight a little bit longer. It was kind of funny because Sting is just like leaning up against the ropes. He doesn't know what the fuck's going on. Bret just turns around and starts kicking his ass. Stupid match. But before that, the University of Oklahoma's fight song plays. And out comes...
I don't know. Kind of get tired of every match having an interference. You have Sting and Bret Hart in the ring together, and you decide to do some kind of run-in.
Benoit and Bret Hart.
Yeah, Benoit and Bret Hart. Well, let's see how much shit we can throw in it.
But moving on, we have a Wrestling Rewind. And this week is WCW Mayhem 1999. We are in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So we get an opening hype video. It's the immediate fallout from Halloween Havoc. Goldberg did not, in fact, win the World Heavyweight title, but J.J. Dillon strips Sting of the belt anyway because he assaulted Charles Robinson. He hit him with a Scorpion Death Drop. It was a brutal attack. Dillon announces a 32-man tournament to determine who should be champion. So we see highlights from the tournament. So the first round, Bret Hart's leg still fucked up, but he managed to beat Goldberg with the help of Scott Hall and Kevin Nash, who is not retired anymore. I wish they would explain that. I know they probably did like on Nitro or something, but throw me a bone. Yeah. Medusa was allowed to enter the tournament. She faced Ming. It was hilarious. Caused me to actually look up the match and watch it. DDP was taken out of the tournament by David Flair in a crowbar. Mr. Perfect beat Disco Inferno with a rare win. Chris Benoit beat Dean Malenko in a cage match. And then Sting beat the shit out of Brian Knobbs with a bat. So in the second round, Bret Hart beat Perry Saturn, of course. It looks like Bret Hart fucked over Psycho Sid and Scott Hall beat him. So Kidman beat Norman Smiley thanks to help from Brian Knobbs. And Jeff Jarrett beat Mr. Perfect. Medusa was given a second chance at the tournament. She faced Chris Benoit with equal results. Scott Hall beat Lash LaRue. And I think Luger beat the shit out of Ming with a pipe. And that's how he advances. It just cuts to Luger just wailing out Ming with a pipe. And I can just imagine that's how the match started. Like, I'm not even going to fuck with this. So the third round is we only have 8 men remaining. The Bret Hart beat Billy Kidman. Jeff Jarrett beat Buff Bagwell. Chris Benoit beat Scott Hall. Sting beat Lex Luger with help from Ming, who was still pissed off about the pipe, I guess. So now we are down to the final 4. It is Sting, Chris Benoit, Jeff Jarrett, and Bret Hart. And that is what we have to look forward to this pay-per-view. And then we get another hype video. Again, it's about the tournament. The last 4 men cut promos all about how they're going to win. Well, Sting said it's showtime, folks.
I'm kind of liking it, by the way.
Of course you are.
It's showtime, folks.
So the show officially starts with Tony Schiavone and Bobby Heenan on commentary. We have a double main event, which happens to involve the tournament, of course. Jeff Jarrett is going to face Chris Benoit, and then Bret Hart is going to face Sting. Heenan says he can't possibly pick a winner. The second main event is an I Quit match between Bill Goldberg and Psycho Sid. They tried to say that Sid got the way that Sid got his ass kicked last pay-per-view translated to him not quitting tonight. Like, did you just see how he kept getting up? Goldberg was more than happy to just kick his ass, but
they had to call it off because he was getting beat so bad.
We also have Kimberly Page versus David Flair. Buff Bagwell versus Mr. Perfect. Loser has to retire. There's an intergender 6-man tag match. Rick Steiner has to wrestle Scott Hall. And then Norman Smiley versus Brian Knobbs for the new hardcore title. We also have Vampiro versus Berlin in a chain match, Ming versus Lex Luger, and finally Disco Inferno versus Evan Courageous. I think that was for the Cruiserweight title.
So when they said there was 12 matches on the card, I knew we were in for a fast-paced event. It's like, wow, 12 matches, Jesus. They're going to be flying through these matches.
They kind of did.
Yeah. It felt like TNA. Total nonstop action, because it was just like one thing after another.
Yeah.
There's no time to breathe.
Well, the first match of the evening is Jeff Jarrett versus Chris Benoit. It's for the World Heavyweight title tournament. Jeff Jarrett is handpicked by the powers that be as their guy, and they put him in the first match so he'll have plenty of rest for the main event. So the match starts, and Benoit is all business. Actually hits a superplex early. Then Jarrett lures Benoit to the floor, crotches him on the steel ring post. They get in the ring, and it's all Jarrett until Benoit fights out of a sleeper hold. They go back and forth. Then Benoit hits the rolling German suplexes for a near fall. Then two boring motherfuckers come out in suits, wearing sunglasses indoors. Benoit almost gets counted out, but Jarrett won't allow it, and he almost loses the match. Then Benoit nails the diving headbutt, but one of the suits breaks up the pin by pulling Benoit off of Jarrett from outside the ring. The ref and Benoit start yelling at the suit. Then the second suit sneaks up from behind Benoit and beats his ass. Jarrett hits the stroke and goes for the pin. Then Goldust comes out. I forgot Goldust. What the fuck happened to him? So Goldust comes out from the crowd, pulls Jarrett off of Benoit, and starts brawling with one of the suits. And then the second suit grabs Jarrett's guitar and jumps on the apron. Jarrett tries to set Benoit up, but he gets thrown into the suit instead. So Benoit gets the guitar, smashes it over Jarrett's head, and he pins Jarrett and wins the match. Then the suits and Jarrett just beat the fuck out of Benoit until security has to come out. I have no idea what happened to Goldust.
Yeah, it kind of disappeared after that, and we never saw him again.
Did he just leave? Did he just stop mid-swing? Like, I'm done.
Yeah, like really, because the suit came back. So what happened?
So we go to the back. Mike Tenay is interviewing Disco Inferno. Something about him putting the Cruiserweight title on the line against Evan Courageous. And then there's a $25 on the line as well for some reason. Doesn't matter, though, because here comes a pissed off Jeff Jarrett and the suits, and they fuck Disco Inferno up. They just come right through the curtain and see him and just fuck him up. It was great. Conan and some loser had to step in and save Disco. So then we have Evan Courageous with Medusa versus the Disco Inferno. It's for the Cruiserweight title. Evan Courageous comes out holding hands with Medusa. I don't like him.
I don't remember him.
Disco's music plays, but there's no disco. And then they cut to the back. Disco is still writhing in pain on the floor from his ass beating. They, just suffered not 5 minutes ago. Then Disco is forced to go to the ring by some sparkly shirt-wearing homo called Tony Marinara. Disco comes out, and Courageous immediately runs to the entrance ramp and starts kicking his ass. So Tony Marinara gets on commentary so he can be a stereotype. Meanwhile, back in the ring, and despite a 3-man ass beating, Disco Inferno is taking it to Courageous. And he dances for Medusa. Her pussy seems to get slightly damp. Then Tony Marinara, who's significantly less attractive than both Disco Inferno and Courageous, he starts trying to fuck Medusa. She's not having it. Courageous comes in, grabs Marinara by the throat. You talking to my girl? Then Disco comes in from behind Courageous with a chair, but thankfully he whacks Marinara instead. Then Courageous finally wins this piece of shit after a springboard crossbody. He made out with Medusa while Disco carried Marinara to the back.
Yeah. Now, should be noted, I guess Disco Inferno's character now is someone in like trouble with the mob, or he owes the mob money. So it was noted that if he didn't win this match, he was going to die because he owed them money.
Yes.
And That's why Tony Marinero was out there, because he's there to collect the debt. But yes, Disco didn't win, and Marinero said he was going to call, I don't know, the big mafia guy. If you didn't get it off of the name Tony Marinero, he's supposed to be some Italian mob guy. And
I
he
just
kept saying, "Forget about it."
I just feel like the roles were reversed
Well, he's the son.
of the Capo de Capi.
Yeah. Now things didn't go right, so he's supposed to be calling in the big guy. That's why his role is to be like some little scrawny,
Oh, I wonder if Big Vito's
the
coming.
boss's son. I'm sure we'll see next time. I guess if you want to give him credit, there's a little hook. Like, who's
True.
the big guy?
Well, no, because I don't give a shit. If I have to see more of that Marinara guy.
True.
Well, we cut back to the back. Bret Hart has arrived with his pumpkin spice latte. And then we cut to Jeff Jarrett and what looks like the showers or something. He's talking to Vince Russo, who's off camera like the Claw from Inspector Gadget. The suits are standing behind Jarrett. Russo's pissed that Jarrett lost the match when the deck was so stacked in his favor. And then Jarrett has until the end of the night to prove himself, or Jarrett's on his own. And Jarrett says, "Yankee, you got it." He made sure to lean heavily into the fact that Vince Russo is from New York and a Yankee.
Of course. So there's story number 2 within the pay-per-view. You
Then
have
we
until
got
the
to-
end of the night to impress me.
I guess we'll get to that. Then we cut to Mean Gene Okerlund. He is interviewing Norman Smiley, who is dressed as a hockey goalie for some reason. Smiley is facing Brian Knobbs in a hardcore rules match for the new hardcore title. Smiley says he's a consummate hardcore athlete, and Knobbs isn't ready for his ferocity. Then someone drops a pipe from somewhere, and that scares the shit out of him. Gene says it's just some construction work. Smiley says, "See, the hardcore warrior in me is always ready to explode." Which leads us to Brian Knobbs versus Norman Smiley. Hardcore match for the new hardcore title. What'd you think of the hardcore belt?
It just looks like any other WCW belt.
Well, Knobbs came out with a dumpster full of weapons, and he immediately starts using them on Smiley, and Smiley just screams like a girl. Knobbs jumps off the turnbuckle with a trash can intended for Smiley, and then Smiley rolls out of the way. Then Jimmy Hart inexplicably tosses a trash can right into Smiley's hands. So Smiley gets some offense until Knobbs recovers. Then Knobbs starts taking Smiley's hockey pads off. Smiley hits him in the face with a trash can lid and rolls to the floor. Jimmy Hart just jumps on Smiley's back, and then Knobbs beats Smiley's ass to the back, then throws him through a table. Then they fight in the back. Jimmy Hart helps Knobbs, and then Knobbs cracks Smiley in the head with a carton of milk. So I don't know where all this food came from, but there's food all over the place. And Knobbs is throwing Smiley in boxes and shit, and he grabs a carton of milk and he just beams him in the head with it. And milk goes flying all over the place, and it's all over Smiley. And then Smiley just starts screaming as if he's covered in acid. It was great.
Yeah.
And then they fight all the way to an elevator, and the door closes, and sadly it doesn't go anywhere because that would have been cool. Jimmy Hart waits for the elevator door to open with a trash can, and he accidentally cracks Knobbs in the back of the head, and then Smiley wins. Knobbs then kicks Jimmy Hart's ass and Norman Smiley's ass. He says, "To hell with you both." So what'd you think of Screaming Norman Smiley?
Well, I guess they're doing anything to get him over. I don't know. I don't know what they're doing with it. It's come a long way from that boring guy who was just a good wrestler at his early days.
No shit. Kind of a joke.
Yeah. And then he's doing his little dance where he does the slap, and he was slapping Brian Knobbs' ass. Like, oh boy.
Let me get a Revolution Filthy Animals hype video. They had a Tori in a cage match to kick off the feud. Animals won. Then Malenko and Asia beat Rey Mysterio and Tori Wilson, I guess in a tag match. Mysterio was hurt by Malenko. I think the Revolution won a cage match after that. Rey Mysterio was handcuffed to the roof of the cage by his ankle. Then Mike Tenay interviews the Revolution. And he says, what if Asia's alone in the ring with the filthy animals? Shane Douglas says, well, what if Asia takes all of the animals out by herself? Well, what if we take everybody out but Tori Wilson and it's her alone? And Malenko and Saturn speak just to speak. They're teasing everybody getting fed up with Saturn's bossy ass as well. Because he's like, come on, guys. And Malenko made a face.
I was just thinking later on, that was Malenko, wasn't it? In the main event?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to talk about out of character.
Well, then Mean Gene interviews the filthy animals. Conan lets Gene touch his hat, and then he says they're going to win the match. Kidman says something about Tori using someone's balls or something. And then Tori says she can't wait to fight Asia. I can't wait to get my hands on her. Then Disco Inferno and the Marinara fruitcake are in the locker room. Disco's apologizing for whacking the shithead in the head with the chair. The shithead then says he's going to round up the boys, and that scares Disco.
Yeah.
Then Jeff Jarrett is walking in the back. He's carrying a 2x4. The suits are still with him. And Jarrett says that Yankee SOB is going to get more than what he asked for.
Yeah.
So all of the blow-off matches that the Filthy Animals and the Revolution had led to our stupid intergender tag match. It was Billy Kidman and Eddie Guerrero and Tori Wilson versus Perry Saturn, Dean Malenko, and Asia. Tori Wilson thought she was Sensational Sherry. The men had absolutely no problems laying hands on Asia. She got her ass whooped.
They even double teamed her at one point.
They sure did. When Douglas is like, well, what if Asia's alone in the ring with them? And I'm like, oh man, they're going to have a spot where she takes them all out. They put that to rest real quick. Tori Wilson gets in the ring once and gets her ankle hurt after Saturn dragged her. Then Eddie Guerrero and Kidman went to check on Tori. Eddie shoves Kidman into Malenko, who locks in a schoolboy. Kidman and Eddie start arguing. Then Kidman leaves. It's an elimination match. Eddie gets his ass beat while Tori is tended to by medical people, and Conan leaves for some reason. Despite, it being 2.5 on 1, Eddie manages to eliminate Malenko with a roll-up. Then Eddie eliminates Asia with a frog splash. Saturn finally eliminates Eddie with the Rings of Saturn. So it's down to Perry Saturn and Tori Wilson. Tori kicks Saturn in the balls. Saturn punches Tori in the pussy and wins the match.
Yes.
Saturn also made it a point to stand over Tori and pose.
Yeah, to show her who's boss.
Yeah, I thought they were just going to have Eddie beat Saturn and that's it.
I knew they were protecting Tori for a spot. But yeah, obviously that's not what I thought was going to happen there. But I knew they were protecting her because she was out on the apron. She wouldn't get tagged in. There was that spot where Eddie was like, oh, I'm going to tag you. And it's like, never mind, I got it. I thought it was going to be like at least Asia and someone versus her. But
well, the thing with Eddie, that was after she hurt her ankle. Because for some reason, the medical people, they were tending to her and then they just, I guess, left. They dispersed. Like, you'll be all right. Walk it off. So she was on the floor while Eddie basically had a handicap match. And then there was one spot where he went to go tag her and he's like, oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. You're hurt.
Yeah.
Even though you're still in the match. I'm hurt too, but whatever.
I'm getting my ass beat here.
Dean Malenko also got into it with a fan, quote unquote. A fan waved his Canadian flag in the back of Dean Malenko's head. Malenko didn't like it. The fan speared Malenko with the flag.
Like a javelin. So yeah, if you can imagine, the fan's waving the flag, it hits Malenko. Malenko turns around and says something to the fan. And then the fan turns the flagpole and then jabs. This fan was also had face paint of the Canadian flag on, so obviously this was probably a plant.
I looked it up. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I didn't even bother looking that one up. Like if his face weren't painted, then maybe I would have believed it a little bit more, but
Well, what killed it for me was the main event.
Oh,
I could believe some drunk asshole would stab somebody with a flag.
yeah.
And the way the security guys kind of swarmed him, it wasn't just Malenko getting pissed off. It was the security people that kind of like ended it
Immediately
real
walked
quick.
him out.
Yeah. That's what convinced me. But yeah, as soon as I saw Malenko, I'm like, oh no. Then we cut to the back again. Jeff Jarrett and the Suits are beating Buff Bagwell's ass. And that's just before Mr. Perfect versus Buff Bagwell. This is a retirement match. Buff Bagwell doesn't come out at first. Instead, Jeff Jarrett and the Suits come out to beat up Mr. Perfect. And then Bagwell comes out with a 2x4 and clears Jeff Jarrett and his goons. Then Bagwell beat Mr. Perfect after the most forgettable match I've ever seen. And like you couldn't tell either one of them were just assaulted by 3 grown men before the match.
Yeah, it was kind of just like a nothing match.
It was. And it was sad because this was allegedly Mr. Perfect's last match. I didn't look it up to see if he wrestled or not. I don't know if he went to TNA.
I don't know.
Well, after that, Mike Tenay interviews Sting. Sting just says he has to beat Bret Hart, and then he's in the finals. And Sting says Bret Hart just has to remember that if it wasn't for the powers that be, he'd still be champion. Sting tells Tenay that to tell Bret that it's showtime, folks.
Showtime, folks.
That leads us to Bret Hart versus Sting for the World Heavyweight title tournament. Shivani mentioned Owen Hart's death, which might be the first time that's happened since we started watching these pay-per-views. I don't remember any of the WrestleManias doing that.
Yeah, definitely the first time I remember hearing it.
Normally, you would think that Sting versus Bret Hart would be a big deal, but no. Sting's wrestling in a t-shirt. That's how much he cares. I don't know. I would just think that it would be a big mega match.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be something major.
So it's a pretty even match until Hart goes to the top rope for his elbow drop, and Sting grabs a hold of the referee, and Hart just attacks anyway. That takes Sting and the ref out. Then out comes Lex Luger and Miss Elizabeth. Luger attacks Sting with a bat. Bret attacks Luger with the bat, locks in the sharpshooter. He hits Luger in the throat with the bat. Luger taps and the bell rings. Sting is disqualified due to the outside interference. Bret then demands that the match continue. Ref agrees. No one asks Sting about it.
Well, he was disqualified. Why would he say anything otherwise?
Because he's the participant. So yeah, the bell rings again. They just fight a little bit longer. It was kind of funny because Sting is just like leaning up against the ropes. He doesn't know what the fuck's going on. Bret just turns around and starts kicking his ass some more. Sting gets Bret in the sharpshooter. Bret escapes by attacking Sting's injured leg. And then he makes Sting tap to the sharpshooter. And they shake hands after as a sign of respect.
Yeah. I was actually surprised. I thought Sting was going to win after the restart. You know, Bret being an upstanding citizen, I thought that was going to cost him.
Almost did, but Bret went to that ruthless aggression and attacked Sting's injured leg.
Yeah.
Well, after that, Mean Gene Okerlund interviewed Chris Benoit. The finals are set. Bret Hart versus Chris Benoit. And Benoit has waited a long time for this moment, and it's an honor to face Bret Hart, who's a Canadian legend. The first time they faced each other was for Owen. This time will be for the recognition that Benoit deserves. Then, Mike Tenay interviews Lex Luger. Tenay wants to know if Luger needs the neck brace after Sting struck him in the throat with a baseball bat. Luger says, "I'd like to see you take a bat to the throat." Then he says he can't compete tonight after being struck in the throat with a baseball bat. He's like, "My neck's fucked up. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to write a personal check to all the fans that came to see me and they didn't get their money's worth." And yeah. But before that, we have Vampiro with some guy with a dildo on his forehead versus Berlin with his guy. And this is a chain match. The match starts and Berlin refuses to put the chain on, and he ends up decking the ref. Berlin's guy decks Vampiro. Vampiro's friend just watches from the floor. Berlin starts assaulting Vampiro with the chain. Then Dildo Hair gets involved. He's immediately tossed out of the ring. Berlin and Dildo brawl on the floor while Berlin's friend kicks Vampiro's ass in the ring. Berlin tapes Dildo to the guardrail, just stomps him out. Berlin's friend chains himself to Vampiro, starts kicking his ass a little bit longer. Then he goes for the pin after a choke slam. Berlin pushes his buddy off. He's like, no, I have to pin him. The friend takes the collar off, throws it at Berlin, leaves all pissed off. It's like, to hell with you then. Vampiro wins after a modified camel clutch. He used the chain. That was the stupid match. But before that, the University of Oklahoma's fight song plays. And out comes... And out comes Dr. Death Steve Williams with a man donning a cowboy hat and carrying a bottle of barbecue sauce. The man's face is also twisted up like he had a stroke or, I don't know, Bell's palsy.
Whatever it was.
Yeah. Dr. Death and Twisty Face promptly march over to commentary. So throughout the match, we got to listen to a funny mushmouth Southern accent. And he contributed commentary gems such as, Vampiro! 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 By God, somebody stop the match.
He was calling him Vampiro.
Vampire. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, he kept saying it.
Vampiro! Vampiro! Yeah, you're right. So after the match, Dildo Head and Vampiro are celebrating. Dr. Death kicks both of their asses. And then he gets in Vampiro's face and starts talking shit like Steve Austin and asks for a beer, I think.
He did, and they cut it off.
Yeah, this was bad, bad, bad.
I started laughing after a certain point. Because, yeah, he's just yelling, Vampiro! Vampiro! He just kept yelling it over and over.
Okay, maybe the first two were funny. But yeah, I was like, okay, that's all you got, bud.
And then he kept... Yeah, and he was calling himself the greatest commentator ever.
So I guess Dr. Death feuds with Vampiro after this, so there's that. Aside from that, they had no affiliation with this match.
Well, I guess that's good. I don't know. I didn't know the other reason for them to be out there other than they just wanted to make fun of JR for whatever reason. Well, sorry. His name was Oklahoma, not Jim Ross. As they said, birth name, Oklahoma. It's on his birth certificate.
Well, we're in the back again. Mike Tenay is interviewing Scott Hall. Hall was awarded the TV title because Psycho Sid powerbombed the former champion, Rick Steiner, through the stage. Hall is also the U.S. champion. So both Rick and Scott Steiner are in the hospital, and Hall wonders if they get a discount. Then he issues an open challenge, oh God, for anyone in the locker room to come suck his dick. He's just like, anybody can meet me down there. And then Tenay's like, down where? Down here. Then Mr. Perfect is walking, and that's it. Then Kimberly's walking, and that's also it.
Well, Mr. Perfect is doing the walk of shame as this was his career. Like,
yeah, but nothing happened.
Nothing happened. No, he just got like looks from people. Respect.
Then we had Lex Luger versus Ming. This was easily the best match of the night so far. The bell rings. Luger, who's wearing a neck brace, says, hey, Ming, can you go easy on my neck? And Ming just proceeds to beat the ever-living piss out of Luger. However, the neck brace thwarts Ming's attempt at a tongue and death grip. So Ming just decides to beat the shit out of Luger until he can figure out a way to beat Luger. So luckily, Luger brought out Miss Elizabeth, who blatantly squirted something into his eyes. And then Ming uses that opportunity to take the neck brace off and then wins with a tongue and death grip.
And remember, Lex Luger had the neck brace on because he got hit in the throat earlier with a baseball bat. It was clever that he got hit with the baseball bat, so he had a neck brace, which also just so coincidentally prevented Ming from using his finisher.
Genius.
Yes. When I put it all together, I'm like, wow, that's pretty smart right there. The fact that they tied the earlier moment of him getting hit with a baseball bat to now he's wearing a neck brace in a match with a guy who uses a move that goes to the neck. Like, okay.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
And the only flaw in Luger's plan was having a Miss Elizabeth. I don't know what she was thinking.
I don't know, but she did take way too long to spray that.
Well, then she like immediately just pointed it at Luger. She didn't try to make it look convincing at all.
Yeah, so it was supposed to go to Ming. He reverses it, and he's just holding Luger there. And then, yeah, she's still fumbling around with the spray, and then finally sprays it. So there's a good, like, I don't know, 20, 30 seconds that she could have stopped.
Well, after that, we have Scott Hall's open challenge. Hall gets on the mic, says he likes beating people up in Canada. Nash is on his way, and they're going to turn Toronto upside down. So if anybody in the back wants to fight, let's go. So Booker T answers the challenge, and they fucked up and played his music early, which I thought was kind of funny. I also thought it was interesting that I could tell it was Booker T just won like a couple notes.
Yeah.
It's a testament to how good the theme song is. So they have a match. Looks like Hall has Booker T beat. Then Jarrett and the Suits come out. Booker then starts running wild on Hall. And then Jarrett climbs the apron, distracts the ref. The Suits attack Booker. He kicks their ass. Booker then shoves Nick Patrick, the ref, out of the way. He climbs the middle turnbuckle to yell at Jarrett. Hall comes in from behind and hits Booker with a razor's edge, and he wins the match. Jarrett and the Suits then push Hall out of the ring. They're like, get out of here. And they stomp Booker T out, just beat his ass. And then the lights go out, lights come back on, and it's just a girl. Her name is Midnight. Jarrett and the Suits immediately throw their credibility out the window because she kicks their ass single-handedly. And everybody who got beat up by the Suits and Jarrett beforehand looked like even bigger pussies.
I don't know. She was a big girl. Did you see the size of her thighs?
Yeah,
I thought it was a dude.
It probably was.
Like, I know WCW is on their big woman. Wait, no, Nicole Bass is ECW. Well, they got China. Oh, sorry. They got, what's her name? Asia?
Asia, who's bigger than China.
Yeah. They got her. But this was a big woman. If it was even a woman. I didn't get a good look at her face.
She was tall, but she wasn't like that big. She was
Her
bigger
thighs,
than the...
She was bigger than Booker T.
She was not bigger than Booker T.
Yes, she was.
Oh my God. She wasn't bigger than the Suits.
Well, no.
So there you go. So we go to the back again. Lex Luger is looking for Miss Elizabeth, presumably to slap the shit out of her or hate fuck her, one of the two. Then we get a Kimberly Page, David Flair hype video. Kimberly tried to seduce David and slip him pills of some kind at a hotel. Instead, Flair fucks the shit out of her and spanked her 14 times. At Halloween Havoc, Kimberly kneed David in the balls, and DDP kicked his ass pretty thoroughly. Then things got weird. We see DDP kiss David on the lips. David understandably snaps and destroys DDP with a crowbar. Then we see David get run over by a car in the parking lot, and it's Kimberly Page that ran him over. Then David begins to hunt Kimberly. She runs because I guess she thought she'd just hit him with a car and they go their separate ways. Then we see Kimberly running. She's hiding from David while he stalks her. She finds a security guard. Turns out to be David in disguise. Then he says he's going to violate her with a crowbar. Kimberly then hires Bam Bam Bigelow for protection. David Flair kicks Bam Bam Bigelow's ass, then chases Kimberly to her car, proceeds to smash it up with her inside. And he's like screaming like a lunatic with his voice cracking and shit. It's like, ah! And he's so unhinged, the Jarrett Suits come out and chase David off. He scurries off like a rodent. Vince Russo and Kimberly are in a meeting after that. He tells her that if she's not shaking her ass, she's going to wrestle. So she wrestles until David chases her out of an arena. I'm floored that this is the first match that gets a hype video.
Well, they kind of hyped at the beginning. But yeah, so much happened that I guess we needed one. I don't know.
So it leads us to David Flair versus Kimberly Page. Then the match starts. The ref makes David put his crowbar down, and then he goes after Kimberly. Then the ref decides to keep the two people that are wrestling a match separated. So Kimberly kicks David in the balls. David goes to grab the crowbar, and he reveals that he's wearing a cup. The ref tries to stop David. He gets whacked upside the head with the crowbar. Then Kimberly gets on her knees to beg. Doesn't work. Then she acts like she's going to suck David Flair's dick. That does work. And then it turns out that she's just trying to get to the cup. So she rips it out of David's pants and properly kicks him in the nuts. And then Kimberly kicks David's ass, shoves his cup in his face, making him smell his own juices. And then David shoves Kimberly off, grabs the crowbar. She cowers in the corner. She's doing all this like physical shit to him. And then he finally like gets her off of him. And then she's like, oh, wait a minute. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's cowering in the corner, like, oh, okay, David, that's enough. You're crazy. So then Canyon comes out and kicks David's ass. Then DDP comes out and kicks David's ass until Arn Anderson comes out to save him. David Flair then attacks Arn Anderson with a crowbar and runs through the crowd. And he's taken away on a stretcher. And I feel like the crowd didn't care one bit.
Yeah, there wasn't enough reaction.
There was like no reaction. In fact, I think like there was a fan or something teasing taking her shirt off because they kept saying, show your tits.
Well, this match ended up being worse than I thought it was. Just saying something because I thought it was going to be pretty bad.
There was no other option.
Yeah. But it was weird that David Flair didn't try to hit her, seeing as like earlier we had two men double teaming a woman with no problem.
Right.
But they were doing the very WWE thing where it's like, oh, I can't hit you, but I'm going to make it look like I hit you. Now that I remember, Disco Inferno wouldn't hit Jackie either. So maybe it's just like if it's a one-on-one match, they can't do it. I don't know.
Let me get a Psycho Sid Goldberg hype video. Goldberg and Psycho Sid set up a match at Halloween Havoc. Then Goldberg spent the evening kicking Sid's ass. Sid can't let that go. Then he tries to say Goldberg said he quit during their match or something. So Goldberg comes out, kicks Sid's ass again, challenges him to an I Quit match. So then Mike Tenay's interviewing Psycho Sid. And Tenay says their last match was an all-out war, and it won't be over until one of you quits. Sid says it's inconceivable that he would ever say the words I quit, especially to Bill Goldberg. They gave each other the fight of their lives at Halloween Havoc, but Goldberg has already quit, so he's going to rip them apart. I don't know. And that leads us to Psycho Sid versus Goldberg. I Quit match. So Sid fared a lot better this time around, got a lot more offense. He even hit 2 choke slams. Then Goldberg got Sid in an armbar, dislocated his shoulder. That's pretty much it. Goldberg beats Sid's ass until he puts him in a chokehold, and that puts him to sleep. Ref calls off the match.
Which got booed.
Goldberg was getting booed.
And the finish got booed.
Because Goldberg won.
Oh, I thought it was because Sid didn't really say I quit. They just called the match off.
That could have some element to it, but I'm pretty sure it's because of Goldberg.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah, they hated him. So we're in the back again. Mean Gene is talking to Lex Luger. He says, Miss Elizabeth knows she fucked up. Told a package doesn't get mad, he gets even. And Miss Elizabeth better watch her back at Nitro. So he's got to fuck her up.
Yeah.
And we finally get our main event, Chris Benoit versus Bret Hart for the vacant World Heavyweight title. It's a really good match. Both men showed tons of respect. Leaned heavily into the Canadian thing, obviously. Early on, Brent went for a sharpshooter. Benoit turned it into a crossface attempt. And they both stood and showed respect. Then Dean Malenko comes out dressed like the fan that embarrassed him earlier, and he attacked Benoit on the floor. Hart comes out, kicks Malenko's ass. Then they go back to wrestling. Hart hit a pile driver. Benoit hit a tombstone. Then a diving headbutt. Then out comes Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. Hall takes out the ref, then attacks Benoit. Nash has a chair. He's about to use it on Hart. And then out comes Goldberg. He spears Nash. Then Hall attacks Goldberg. Hart goes to attack Hall. And then Hart and Hall fight on the floor. Then Hall just leaves with Nash. Like he just decides to stop fighting. So Nash and Hall are making their exit and Goldberg follows. So they brawl to the back. And then back in the ring, there's a new ref. So Benoit and Hart continue. Lots of back and forth. Benoit's targeting Hart's injured leg. And then Benoit tries to do a rolling German suplex. Hart escapes. Benoit tries to lock in the crippler crossface. Hart fights out of it and gets Benoit in the sharpshooter. Benoit taps, and Hart's the new champion. And Hart celebrates with his family, and I think Benoit shook hands with every single member of them.
Good for him.
And yeah, the interference was useless.
Yeah, I enjoyed the match after all the interferences. I don't know what I was expecting, as pretty much every match had some kind of interference.
Right.
But after the interferences were over, I enjoyed it.
Well, Mayhem would be the last non-WWF pay-per-view held in Toronto until June 25th of 23. That was when Forbidden Door took place, produced by All Elite Wrestling. And our next show is Starrcade 99. We're in Washington, D.C. The main event is Goldberg versus Bret Hart. No disqualification match. It's for the World Heavyweight title.
There you go.
But before that, we have ECW's November to Remember, 1998. It's the 6th November to Remember, which took place from the Lakefront Arena in New Orleans, Louisiana. 7 professional wrestling matches were held at the event. The main event was a 6-man tag match in which the team of Sabu, Rob Van Dam, and Taz, calling themselves the New Triple Threat, squared off against the original Triple Threat, Shane Douglas, Bam Bam Bigelow, and Chris Candido. Other matches were the Blue World Order versus Danning Doring and Amish Roadkill. We have Tommy Rogers versus Tracy Smothers, Spike Dudley versus Mabel, Lance Storm versus Jerry Lynn, Tommy Dreamer and Jake Roberts versus Just Incredible and Jake Victory, and then Masato Tanaka and Balls Mahoney versus the Dudley Boys.
There's some interesting matches there.
Yeah. I guess I kind of blew past it. What'd you think of Mayhem altogether?
I don't know. Like I said, it was very fast paced. Every match had an interference. So, I don't know. There was a lot of story going on, though.
It was a lot of story. It didn't give you a whole lot of time to breathe, though.
Yeah, it was like every segment, we'll go to the back, and then there's more story building into the next match. I think there was one point where someone was leaving their match. I think it was whoever was after Tori Wilson. Tori Wilson was still walking back, or maybe it was Kimberly. I don't know. One of them. Someone was walking back, and the next act was coming out. So, yeah, I don't know how I feel about it.
Well, that's just pay-per-view number 2 of the Vince Russo era.
It's definitely different. So it's something to get used to.
Whatever it is, it's better than what we're watching current day.
I don't know. It's more wrestling, yes, but I just kind of get tired of every match having an interference. You have Sting and Bret Hart in the ring together, and you decide to do some kind of run-in shit.
I'm not saying it's great. I'm just saying it's better than modern day.
It could be, but we have yet to get like just a pure match.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
And on paper, these cards are like, oh, Sting and Bret Hart. And then, yeah, it ends up like that.
Benoit and Bret Hart, shit.
Yeah, Benoit and Bret Hart. Well, let's see how much shit we can throw in it.
Let's have Buff Bagwell retire Mr. Perfect.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Like, imagine this being Mr. Perfect's last opponent.
Fortunately, it isn't. He actually goes back to WWE for a little bit. He does TNA, too.
Oh, good for him.